Hey everyone. So today we're going to talk about Zentangles, also known as Zen Doodles. And I have this awesome book called Zen Doodles with lots of different examples of Zentangles. I call them Zentangles, even though this book calls them Zen Doodles. But basically, they're repeated shapes and lines and patterns, which pattern is something that repeats, okay? And there's lots of different ways to do Zentangles, lots and lots and lots of ways. And today I want you to experiment with practicing different Zentangles and also just making up your own. So you're going to be using your imagination to make up Zentangle designs, and then just if you're having a hard time, you might look at some pictures and then practice some Zentangles, and then you might get more ideas as you practice different types of Zentangles. Before we get started though, I just kind of want to review the three things that Zentangles are based off of. So Zentangles are based off of shapes, and just to kind of review shape, these are geometric shapes, and we often think of things that are man-made that are geometric. And these down here are organic shapes, and they're often inspired by nature, okay? Geometric shapes have nice straight lines, things that might be perfectly round or symmetrical, and organic shapes are kind of what I call wackadoodle shapes because they've got nice curvy lines and they don't usually have names, although you can say that they might look like a leaf or they might look like a cloud. They don't actually have names like geometric shapes do, okay? All right, line, okay? Tons of different types of line that you can make, and you know, this is something that we talk about in kindergarten and throughout your time in elementary school. Zigzag lines, wavy lines, curly lines, dotted lines, diagonal, vertical, horizontal, spirals, and thin and thick lines, okay? These are all things that you can use to make Zentangles. And then there's pattern, okay? A single shape, color, line, or object that is repeated. So pattern is repeated shapes, colors, lines, or objects, okay? So pattern involves repetition. And I guess the difference between repetition and pattern, if we're going to be more specific, is that pattern has two or more objects, colors, or shapes repeated in the same way, okay? So here's repetition, but here is pattern. You've got two or more objects, okay? And then rhythm, two or more objects, colors, or shapes repeated in different ways, okay? Rhythm is also called random pattern, okay? They're all repeated, but they're repeated in different ways. Okay, so these are all things that Zentangles are based off of. So I'm gonna move my camera down. Generally, when people make Zentangles, they use black pens or black Sharpies. Of course, you can make Zentangles with anything, but you know, if you're really gonna try to spot a Zentangle, it's usually in black and white, okay? So I might just use the book as inspiration for getting started on my Zentangles. And maybe I just start out with some simple lines, okay? And then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add some dots. And then maybe I'll add some shapes. So here I've got line, shape, and pattern, okay? I've also got repetition. Those are all things that make up Zentangles, okay? And I'm just using my imagination to create this Zentangle. You know, sometimes people overcomplicate this process, and I like to say it's not rocket science, you know? You're just taking different shapes and lines and repeating them in different ways to either just create repetition or to create a pattern. Okay? So now it's going to be your turn to create some Zentangles. Okay? And to practice these, you can use either your waterproof pen or a Sharpie, or if you have another black pen or black marker at home, feel free to use that if you're worried about using up all your ink. Okay? All right. So if you do get kind of stuck, you can always look at some of the examples in my classroom or look at some examples online, okay? All right, happy art making.